Welcome back to the Startup of Human Potential.
I'm Clifton,
And I'm Victoria.
and together we're Faces of the Future. Faces of the Future is a startup studio with a personal development platform at the intersection of consciousness, connection, innovation, and well being. We're excited to have you join us on our show today.
And today we're excited to be joined by our dear friend, Chirag Sagar. He's one of the earliest people who worked with us as Faces of the Future. He's a serial marketing entrepreneur and operations expert, co founder of Mission Matters, which is a media, entertainment, podcast, and book publishing agency that's for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. He's worked and built other projects to have 500,000 monthly unique visitors and built its social media up from scratch. And he was one of the first hires at a White House recognized nonprofit called MoneyThink, which has been funded by Blackstone, BlackRock, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's published 3 books under Mission Matters focused on diversity, real estate, and business leadership. He's an original contributor to the Faces of the Future magazine, and they've been creating a number of events each month as Mission Matters, and Chirag has been the genius behind coordinating all those events. So we're so excited to have you on our show. Welcome, Chirag.
Thank you so much for having me. Great seeing you both, Victoria Clifton.
Absolutely. And maybe if you could digest all of your accomplishments and help our listeners understand what drives you and what got you to where you are today. Were you always, as a child, inquisitive about operations and puzzles, or what led you to be an entrepreneur?
Actually, so it's interesting. I'm born and raised in LA. I grew up in a town called Glendale, California, pretty close to downtown LA, but I wasn't born with the entrepreneurial gene. I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I think had you asked me when I was 6 years old, what I wanted to do would be to play in the NBA, play basketball. And that was a dream that later on, a few years later, I realized I just was not going to be over 6 feet tall, and my hopes and dreams got shattered pretty early on. I would say the entrepreneurial bug didn't really occur to me until I think I was 16. So I had, out of all things, I played this game called StarCraft when I was in my teenage years. One of my favorite games that I used to play. And I used to
What
play
was your favorite race? What did you play as?
either Protoss or Zerg.
Nice, nice. Anyway, we can nerd out about that another time, but yeah.
Yeah. So while I was playing the game, I met a friend, Denton, a while ago, who I met in real life about 10 years later. But I think we were just chatting, and one of the things that he mentioned was about how he was reading this book. And then I just casually asked him, I was like, hey, like, what are your favorite books to read? He's like, well, I love reading business leadership books. And my 2 favorites are How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and then Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so when I was 16, those are actually the 2 first business books that I read, actually. And I
Mhm.
even took notes. I actually listed out all the chapters from How to Win Friends or How to Influence Friends or How to Win Friends and
Friends
Influence
and
People.
influence people.
Yeah. Tongue twister. So that's how it started. And I think that started my track and my journey, especially after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad about being a business owner versus being self-employed versus being an employee.
Mhm.
And I got to see, because I come from a family of jewelers. It's like 5 generations, family-run business, and,
Mhm.
realized that if you classify it that way, then my dad is self-employed, or I guess, doctors and lawyers, which is what my parents wanted me to be, and I guess that's pretty typical of most Asian-based families, so sorry, mom, dad. Didn't make your dreams come true. But I think that was, like, the starting point, and it kinda led me down this whole track ever since then.
Wow. You and Clifton have something alike in that you keep your notes to books. Clifton has a whole binder of all his books and cataloged and indexed, alphabetically or by when he read them, what year. So, yeah, that's so cool. Both are incredible books, and it's so special that you tapped into them at such an early age when we're still moldable and like a time before college, when you're seeing like your model of reality for the world and how you see and interact with the world.
Yeah, no, super fortunate. I mean, it's funny because I used to hate reading, and it's ironic because I now own a book publishing company, but had you told me that a while ago, I would have said you're crazy because I don't even like reading. It wasn't really until I started reading more business leadership, business-oriented books that I actually started to like and enjoy reading. I was learning about things that I was interested in. One thing when you're forced to read textbooks that are just heavy, dense, and
English
not as
literature and
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So some of the books in English, actually, in high school, I did enjoy some of those, but, like, some of the required reading material,
Mhm.
it just didn't suit my interests.
I love how you got started with the book with books and now you're a book publisher,
Yeah.
and just the full circle journey and that's sort of the entrepreneur side. And so now would love to understand a bit of the quanta for the quantumpreneur side, the spiritual side. Did you growing up have any unique abilities or experiences that kind of awoke within you or that was sort of non-normal to your classmates?
Not early on, but I would say definitely much later on. I was able to notice them until I would say until like my mid to late 20s. So it's been over really the last 10 years. I think I had more of like a normal childhood. I mean, I think one of the key differences that I grew up with my extended family. So I always say I had two dads, two moms, three brothers. So kind
Mhm.
of had that growing up. But I think as things evolved a little bit more, like anything pre-college, I didn't feel like there was anything necessarily unique or abnormal. What
Mhm.
I did notice about myself, and this was more so during college when I found things that I was interested in, I just
Mhm.
had a natural curiosity to keep asking a bunch of questions and learning as much as I could. And you know how like when you have a topic you're interested in, now you just Google, or I guess you could ask ChatGPT to research
Yeah.
for you. But
Keeps me up at night.
yeah. I go down rabbit holes about interesting topics, and so I saw myself doing this a lot more in college when I was interested in certain things, whether it was weightlifting or fitness was a huge passion of mine, eating
Mhm.
healthier, and I'd go down rabbit holes about, like, how do you live a more fit and healthy lifestyle? Like, what types of food should I be eating? What type of nutrition should I be having or supplements should I be taking? And just researching as much as I could or reading about it. So those were things that I noticed where whenever I had a passion or curiosity about something, I would go down these rabbit holes and research and learn as much as I could about that topic. And then
Mhm.
even find people that were experts in that area to ask them questions or maybe
Mhm.
seek them out as mentors over time. So those are things that I noticed, but a lot of this didn't really spark. I mean, I call myself a late bloomer. I mean, a lot of things that I like started to do, I didn't really do certain things until much later on. Like, I didn't really have my first proper girlfriend until like my mid 20s. I feel
Wow.
like a lot of things I've allowed myself to just grow organically at my own speed. So, nothing from childhood youth, but I would say more spiritually activated over like more so the last 5 years.
So once you, explored and went down the rabbit holes of fitness, physical well-being, what kind of sparked, your interest to start, researching or looking into other topics? Like, did you then become interested in personal development or mental well-being? That's a trend we see in a lot of people
Mhm.
that we work with and in general. Like, you kinda you nail the physical layer of what you're working on, and then you're like, "What else is there?" There's also mindset and then emotional intelligence and so on. So what sparked the interest to continue working on yourself beyond the physical layer?
That's a great question. So, physical and then I think personal development, especially like my curiosity with the two business books, me
Mhm.
realizing that, oh, what is this business owner? I want to be a business owner. And I started progressing through college. And so, had you asked me when I was 18 years old what I wanted to do, I would have said, oh, I want to get into finance,
Mhm.
possibly accounting. And I think I want to own my own accounting firm. I did my first couple of internships, did my first accounting internship my sophomore year of college and realized over the summer, realized how much I hated it. And so
Mhm.
realized that the office job, important skill sets, right? Very important to run a business. You have to know the accounting in and out. I just learned pretty early on, fortunately, what I would not be doing. And I would rather hire the experts that are good at it and passionate
Yeah.
about it versus me having to do it all myself. But I think it was important for me to learn the fundamentals of at least running a business. And that's kind of how I saw it. And so it kept my interest kept peaking. I kept reading more and more books on business leadership. I ended up going to USC where I graduated part of their business program and I started taking on more internships. And so my interest in fitness was taking off because I played high school football. I did track and field in high school. And just throughout my childhood, I was playing quite a bit of basketball. We used to swim quite a bit. I think I learned how to swim before I even learned how to walk, actually. Like my mom
Mhm.
had videos of me swimming, and I'm maybe not even a year old yet. And I'm in the pool in a floaty. like moving around with mom. So fitness was always part of my entire childhood and going into my teenage years and beyond, and even today. And I would say business itself, when I read the first couple of books, my interest just kept peaking. So personal development became huge. I started reading more blogs and books like Tim Ferriss, for example. He published his book 4 Hour Body, and then he has his 4 Hour Work Week. So it's a hybrid, right? Of fitness, biohacking, life hacking, as they call it. And there was such a strong interconnection between the both of them. So I would say it started with both of those building up around the same time.
That's amazing. So then once you absorbed a lot of knowledge down the personal development side, where did you go as a late bloomer? You're starting to wake up to these possibilities and do your own research that's driven by your passion. And you've established that you want to be a business owner, not work in an accounting firm. Help us go down those rabbit holes. Where did you go next?
So right around, I think my one of my first jobs, I was working in insurance, and so I actually did that throughout college. I was insurance licensed. I even got my Series 6 and 63 in personal finance. I started learning about investment banking through college, and I figured maybe that could be an option. And I realized that lifestyle is just not something that would suit my interests. And funny enough, while I was going down that accounting path and the finance path, a friend of mine from high school told me about this nonprofit you're starting called MoneyThink. The program was basically going into inner city high schools, teaching 16 to 18-year-olds the basics of financial life skills and money management. So it's
Mhm.
like, how do you open up a bank account? How do you get a credit card? How do you apply for a loan? These are critical life decisions that high school students or even young adults are going to be making, and unfortunately are not really taught in school. I was fortunate because I had an amazing government and economics teacher, Mr. Levering. Shout out if you ever listen
Mm.
to this. He actually set aside about 2, 3 months to teach us about personal finances. So I actually learned about
Mm.
opening up Roth
Wow.
IRA account, the difference between a stock, bond, and just like the fundamentals of just
Mhm.
like your basics of money. And
I think they don't really teach in school that you read in Rich Dad Poor Dad instead, right?
yeah, that's exactly what sparked that. My friend from high school told me about this program, and I brought it to USC. I was one of the founders of that program, teaching financial life skills to high school students. It was volunteer run. We would train. The goal was recruit and train college students, provide them the curriculum, and then place them into high schools where it's basically like an older brother, older sisters program, college students teaching high school students, and teach them over the 10 weeks, build enough of a relationship so they have someone that they could ask questions to, and provide them resources that us as college students would have. And so I was building out that program on the side, going to school, and at the same time taking on internships, trying to figure out what I wanted to do thereafter. And that summer, when I wrapped up my junior year going into senior year of college, I ended up teaching English in China. So I was
Mhm.
actually minoring in Mandarin, but I
Mhm.
realized pretty early on if I wanted to learn Chinese, you got to be in China.
What made
And
you interested to study Mandarin in the first place?
I saw the growth of China. So this was something that I learned and saw in college.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was 2008, right? And so this is when China was becoming a world superpower, and I realized
Yeah.
there was gonna be a lot of opportunities there.
Mm.
What better way to learn the language, right? It kind of piqued my interest since I was minoring in the language, and I figured, you know what? Let me go teach English there. They pay you really well. And I had one of my aunts who was living there. She helped guide me. I ended up applying to her program for like a summer job for those 3 months. And so I was living in China for a few months, and that was my first time actually traveling and living on my own and just exploring. This is where I really got to understand myself. And I think that's where my interest in travel just completely peaked. I fell in love with it. I knew that traveling was something that I wanted to keep doing throughout my entire life. And fortunately, I've been able to do that. So while I was there, I spent some time backpacking across different parts of China. I did one trip to Hong Kong. I was staying with a friend who was doing an investment banking internship there. And so I grabbed some dinner with him and I caught up with another friend, and they both were doing investment banking internships. And they're talking about life post college because we were now entering our senior year. And they asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I was trying to tell them, I was like, I'm on this journey right now. I'm trying to figure out what my next move is because, we're graduating in a year. And they're like, you really love this program, MoneyThink. I was like, man, if there's a way you could do MoneyThink, that'd be awesome. So I was like, that would be great. I was like, I actually would love to do that. I think that'd be an awesome first job out of college. I don't think there's an opportunity to go full time here anytime soon. Anyway, funny enough, I come back to LA. So I wrapped up my time and I'm about to start my last year at college. And I caught up with my same friend that introduced me to the program, one of the co-founders. He was about to leave to Chicago to finish up his last year at college. And he told me that he was planning to go full time with the nonprofit. And he was going to figure out over the whole year, like incubate it at University of Chicago and see if we could get some funding because it's a nonprofit, it's a 501(c)(3). So he wanted to see if we can get some grants. When he told me that, there's like a sense in me, there's like a calling almost that said, wow, you just talked about this with some friends like 2, 3 weeks ago. And now you're finding out that he's going full time with this. Maybe there's a way for you to go full time to this too. And so I remember we ended up doing one of those MMA training workout things. And I dropped him home and I told him, I was like, listen, I think I'm going to go full time with you and I want to figure out how to do this. And I'd love to go full time and figure this out. It was awesome. He basically connected with other co-founders. And then over that year, we figured out how to make me go full time with him. And we did. So it kind of planted the seed and then followed through on it throughout the year on what we needed to do.
Wow.
A true quantumpreneur moment of creating something out of nothing, creating an opportunity from inspiration and your friend who had just done it and finding a way for you to stay engaged in what you're already interested in working on. Super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
basically,
it's very clear that you're a very analytical, logic-minded individual.
Yeah.
And we're even dealing with finances, which can be very logic and analytical. But then this opportunity that you're sharing, just as Victoria said, kind of came out of nowhere. You were just talking about it, and then you flew home and you met with the person. So there's a bit of that serendipity, right? And a little bit of that magic, even in a
Mhm.
potentially very analytical approach. How did you know that you wanted to go work at MoneyThink? What was it inside of you in that
yeah,
conversation?
I knew I wanted to do the entrepreneurial thing. When I went to USC, I did an entrepreneurship concentration. I mean, it's cool because USC was actually, I think, the first college to launch an entrepreneurship program. And I think they had just celebrated their 40th year anniversary. A top three program that's been around for a while. And so I took 3 or 4 classes in the entrepreneurship program at USC. And one of the things you get to do is you get to incubate an idea. It's one of the things that would have been cool if I could have taken advantage of because I didn't know that I was going to do MoneyThink full time. So I had a couple of other ideas that I didn't go anywhere with, but I knew entrepreneurship was part of something I wanted to do. And the moment that I got an inkling and that opportunity arose where, hey, if he's going full
Mm.
time, you can't do it alone. You're going to need a team. So I was like, well, why not me? I knew this is
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. I built up the program from ground up. So I knew enough
Mhm.
about the program, I knew what it stood for, I'd been there kind of since the beginning, I wanted to sink my teeth into it, and I knew timing-wise, it would be the best time for me to do it because as you get older, right, you have family, you have responsibilities. Also, it's a nonprofit, right? So it's not like I'm gonna become a millionaire from running a nonprofit anytime soon. So I knew if I was gonna do it, then it would probably be the best time to do it because I don't know if I was gonna have another opportunity like that
I
again.
hear your whole reasoning and logical process
Yeah.
for every decision moment in your
But
life.
ultimately, it came down to you
Yeah,
wanted to do
yeah.
No,
it.
look,
Just
but in
say
our
your heart
mind,
wanted it.
it was the best decision for me, and emotionally, I was already tied into it. So,
Yeah,
it's what I
yeah.
wanted to do. I'm very introspective to the point where, like, more so if I know I want something,
Yeah.
I'm already emotionally and spiritually attached to it.
Mhm.
Logically, I need to now figure out logically, does this make sense?
Yeah, you gotta talk your way through it, huh?
Yeah, so emotionally and spiritually, I'm like, "Okay, I know I want this. Now I need
Yeah,
to understand, does this actually make sense?"
Or
1.
another way of
Logically,
yeah,
I need to
saying
make
it
it make
is,
sense.
how can I logically make this make sense? So how does it make sense?
yeah. Let my
Yeah,
left brain.
Figure out ways, because even in what you said, you can't really start your startup life later on. I mean, we're, what, 10, 15 years in your entrepreneurial journey and you're still doing it. You're still doing it.
yeah. Yeah. You know
Yeah.
what? You don't know what you don't know, and that was, I think, the best part about it. If I knew everything that was gonna happen with MoneyThink, would I have joined it? Right now, I can say yes because there's so many stepping stones and lessons I learned running that program that I don't make the same mistakes. I learned some successes that have been helpful with a lot of the things that I'm
Mhm.
doing. But when you're going through it, you're like, "Oh, would I have done this at that moment in the middle of it?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know." Sometimes you're better off where you just don't know what the path is uncharted, so you don't know where you're going and you don't know
Yeah.
where you end up, right? And you can do whatever you need to try to navigate the entrepreneurial waters, if you wanna call it that. But at the end of it, the circumstances are always gonna be different and unique to your situation.
After going through this process for several years, what would you say is your unique beingness that you contribute to business or just to life in general?
A lot of what I've learned is I've got a really strong intuitive sense, and
Mhm.
I just learned this about myself that I don't really question like, when I get a feeling about something, it's
Mhm.
almost usually pretty accurate. Like, it's
Mm.
like a weird sixth sense where if, like, my gut tells me, "Hey, there's something wrong here, like, don't go left,"
Mhm.
as of this point in time, I don't question it, I just listen to myself and I'll go right. Because
Mhm.
I don't need to go left, and I've just had so many instances throughout my life whether it's like that gut instinct has just been kinda spot on and right,
Mhm.
and then it's more so, "Okay, I'm going right, and then what's the next move?" It's not necessarily that I'm second guessing myself, sometimes I'm trying to understand where is the path headed though, because like in entrepreneurship, like
Yeah.
saying I think what the Wayne Gretzky quote is, "Where's the puck headed?" So
Mhm.
sometimes, like, my gut will say, "Okay, don't go left, you need to go right," but, okay, when I'm going right, where do I go next? And I think that's where I'm at right now, which is I listen to myself and I don't question myself, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
How did you learn to trust your gut? Just happen overnight? Was it a
No, no,
process
no,
of,
no, no,
like
no. There were a lot of factors that came into this. I mean, part of it was, like, when we did the coaching session, right, we spent a lot of time.
Mhm.
2021 was spent, like, reassessing a
Hmm.
lot of my life decisions, and I think I got to go back and see how did I feel in a lot of these certain situations, and, like, what was I going through. Like, one of my reactions I can recall was, like, a smaller example. One gut reaction I had was I was going to an event. As I was about to leave, I saw something that piqued my interest that someone was doing, and so but I was like, "I really just wanna go," but I'm like, for whatever reason, this thing is pointing me out. I was like, "I need to go talk to this person. Just
Mhm.
one last person. If anything else, worst case scenario, let me just exchange business cards and leave." So I went up, I started just chatting with the person and then found out that we had a bunch of mutual friends in common, and then ended up we exchanged information, followed up, and realized it ended up becoming a client of mine later on. And that was actually the best person that I spoke to. It's a small little situation, but it was just something that said, "No, you need to go talk to that person. There's something here," and I just followed that.
Yeah, and that's something Clifton and I talk about a lot with our clients is that you don't have to network with 100 people. If you're in alignment and the intuitive sense is on, you just talk to the right 5 or 10 people, and then those can convert to opportunities for you, for clients, for collaborations, dating, whatever.
Everything. So that was like one
Cool.
of the last times where I had that inclination.
That's awesome. And, a few moments ago, Clifton asked about your unique beingness and your unique essence. And something you said about MoneyThink, and that I know you've done repeatedly, is build things from the ground up. You come in early on to different projects and companies, and you help scale and miracle grow the
Mhm.
opportunities and kind of Kaizen the operation and just like bless the companies.
Yeah, I did that early on with MoneyThink. Following on that, did the same thing with another company called Destination Luxury, which was my next move right after I left MoneyThink.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what the next move was, and it wasn't like a rushed decision. I left MoneyThink in the last couple months of the year 2013. I took some time off. I did a little bit more traveling. I remember going to Cancun. I went to Texas for the first time. I was in Austin and Houston. My brother celebrated his 21st birthday in Vegas, met up with family. So I took the whole month of November just to decompress because I was just in that entrepreneurial grind mode that I think is kind of prevalent in tech culture of like work hard and keep grinding and then like sleep minimal. I was just in that hustle mode and I realized I never really had time to smell the roses and to really
Mm.
enjoy where I was at in the present moment. I took some time to decompress to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And I knew that social media was going to be the next stop. I just didn't know how or in which way. So I took my time to figure it out going into November, December, And then I realized I kind of wanted to get into social media marketing. And one of my mentors, Jason Akuma, actually, shout out to him. I did a 3-month internship with him. I actually just reached out and said, "Hey, look, I'm trying to figure out what my next move is. I know you do a lot, like you run a social media coaching program, executive program. I'd love to do an internship." I was like, "I don't care to intern for free. Like, I'm totally down to do that. I just need to learn how to navigate this and how to create a business around this." And so learned quite a bit about social media marketing, and that was like my initial impetus of getting into it. And then as I was learning about social media, that's how I transitioned into connecting with the friend who was the founder of Destination Luxury, which is his portfolio company. And so just as a friend, I was trying to help him build this out. And then within 6 months, we took this platform non-existent to reaching 20 million people a month. And so as that company started, as the platform started building, we needed to turn it into a professional company, created opportunities for ourselves, and then became a partner eventually. And
Wow, 20,000,000 a month.
20 million a month. That was our peak. I think that was one of our record months that we had. We had like 6 record months in a row.
Mhm.
And that's where I really got into the weeds and really understood how the algorithms worked. Facebook then implemented their algorithm, messed up a lot of marketing initiatives for a lot of companies, how they were impacted by the algorithm. And so I learned that you kind of have to be omni-channel, meaning you have to create content on every social media platform and at the end of the day, you have to own the data. So you have to get everyone's email information, and email newsletter lists are
Mhm.
super important. But you wanted to get as much direct information and direct access to the people that you're building a community for. So,
Mhm.
yeah, Destination Luxury was from the ground up. Mission Matters, again, ground up.
Mm.
I've had probably like another 5, 6, 7 ventures in between that were ground up, but didn't really take off. The entrepreneurial thing always interested me. I knew that I always liked building things from ground up. I realized, I think growing up, one of the things that I later on became aware of is that I just don't take as kindly to, I guess it's not like nagging, but I don't like being told what to do. I like
Those are the people who end up being entrepreneurs.
I
Yeah.
really don't like people telling me how to live my life. I think I've got a good enough head on my shoulders to figure it out. Like, I wanna design my own life. I wanna live the life that I'd like to live, and I don't think school doesn't prescribe entrepreneurship, not
No.
and the way that
Yeah.
life is structured. And even in most cultures, even like in the Indian culture and American culture, it's not to, especially I guess Asian culture too. It's not necessarily to become an entrepreneur, right? I think that
Mhm.
just became a little bit more prominent because of pop culture. And I honestly, I think it's because of the movie The Social Network, where like once that started, entrepreneurship became a little bit more of a trend. But I don't think
More
it's like,
sexy rather than risky. Yeah, and to touch on your human design for a moment for our listeners, Chirag is a manifester. So manifestors tend to be trailblazers. They like to initiate, they like to spark things and have other people keep doing the operations. They like to create movements and they kind of are like the producers of any new initiatives. So I remember when we talked about that with you, that really resonated for you.
yeah, I mean, it resonates now too. It's funny because that's actually what my role at Mission Matters is.
Mhm.
It's basically growing every single, like, usually the way that we built this and the way that my co-founder Adam and I built this company was us two building out like the first like book publishing side of our business, which is all we
Mhm.
did in the very beginning. And so I think 2, 3 years later, we ended up hiring someone to take over that whole division. And then we launched our podcast agency division, which we had someone who kind of handled the operational side of things, like customer service and making sure that clients are taken care of, while I did a lot of the sales side of things. And eventually we grew that out just enough where he could take it over. And then I moved on to the next department
Mhm.
that we built out. And it's happened, I think,
Just
five or
get the
six.
ball rolling and then pass.
Basically, that's like over the last, I guess, 7-ish, 8 years or however long we've been running this now. That's kind of what's happened. It's like, for 1, 2, 3 years, I'm running one part of it, and then we'll find someone else to take it over and then to perfect it as much as possible. But
Mhm.
here's the thing, it's not that I just leave and it's forgotten. My
Mhm.
role has evolved where I get the holistic picture on, and I'll give you an example. Like, we
Mhm.
launched most newly a personal brand accelerator. We're over 8
Mhm.
weeks. We walk people through step by step to build out their personal brand, whether they're a corporate leader or they're a corporate executive trying to climb that corporate ladder or become a board of director one day. We help those people out, whether they're a doctor or a lawyer and they're competing against other doctors and lawyers. We help them establish their brand, or others that are founders of companies raising capital. We help them build their brands out. Those are the three types of people that we've been helping over and over again. Step one is brand establishment, but then part of that is you need to become a further thought leader. And so the way that we see the cycle is publish a book. The next evolution to that is you need to create constant content. It can be through social media, or I think podcasting is probably even better because
Mhm.
you can cut this up into shorter snippets. And now you have social media content, endless pieces of social media content that you can repurpose many times over.
Mhm.
Um, then you get video content, audio content, written form of content, because you can transcribe this, turn this into a blog post. The next evolution to that is then you can do a little PR, so get some coverage in a top publication, and then speak on stage, at events. It's just a natural progression of building your entire brand from start to finish, but seeing how the pieces are all very aligned in what you do. And this is like the entire progression, right? Eventually speak on stage. So it's providing all of the resources that everyone needs to build their business, because
Mhm.
publishing a book, which is how we started Mission Matters, is still very much part of that process. But we've then evolved it further, which is what can we do to help our own authors out build out their brands further, because that's what they wanted. That's why they started writing the book in the first place.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that having a view of the whole chessboard zoomed out and doing more of the strategy is what excites you the most, kind of seeing how all the pieces interrelate and how to keep staying relevant with changing times with AI, with algorithms dictating eyeballs.
Spot on. Yeah. I mean, it's seeing the whole chessboard and then being in the trenches and never losing the feel of what it's like to be on the ground, and
Mhm,
not losing sight of what's actually happening in the trenches either with each customer. So I'm
mhm,
still very much involved, just as really the whole team is involved in even one-on-one conversations with each of our customers every now and then. Of course, I can't be on every single call, but I'm still overseeing every now and then whenever I have time, just because I can't ever lose sense of that. I think the moment you lose sense of that is when you start losing sight, and when you really start losing sense of the culture, and you start
mhm,
losing sense of the relationship with your own customers, and you start getting bad customer service,
mhm.
or when you're not able to deliver because, as an owner, you kind of don't even know what's happening in your own company.
Yeah, it's not very relatable.
And so that's the part that we wanted to always understand and have everyone on our team understand of what's happening on the ground. And if there's any issues, what's happening. So at any given moment, if we have someone that leaves, someone else can step in, or naturally people get sick, you know, people have babies. And so naturally we want to make sure that someone else can take over and they understand what's going on at all times. And so it's not just us, but it's making sure the rest of our team is equipped with what they need to know so that they could also then take over other people's roles and responsibilities too.
Nice. Did you learn that in a book or through the
No,
School of Hard Knocks? What are some of those lessons or
definitely.
those stories that you went through that, back up the statement? Because you can pull top tips and lessons from Chat GPT all day long, right? But what was your experience to really embodying that lesson?
Yeah, these were, yeah, definitely School of Hard Knocks. I mean, these are just things that I think are universal. Like you'll read about it, right? Like, how do you build a personal brand, right? I mean, you could pull it up. We can pull up ChatGPT and it'll give you a list, right? Publish a book, launch a podcast, join
Mhm,
on TV, spend money on marketing, and it'll give you a laundry list of different ways to build your brand and credibility. But you go through, and I think a lot of it was I tested a lot of it out. I mean, at this point, we're fortunate because we've probably been able to help 800 plus people build out
wow.
their brands. So eventually you start seeing what's working, what's not working, and then cut out the fat from this and then start doing what is working. What's cool and I think very unique about our model is that everything that we were trying was first on ourselves. So, meaning my co founder,
Mhm,
Adam, was the face of Mission Matters. We got to test and try everything on building out his brand. So, whatever was working, we would
mhm,
then be able to transfer that to our
mhm,
own clients and be able to help them out. And I realized that, hey, we could actually we could build a business around this that makes sense. So it's fun. So mission matters, which is now what I do. If I were to explain, I kind of mentioned or I hinted at this agency that we have, which is our personal brand builder, which is book publishing, podcasting, PR, helping people get on stage to speak. That's half of what we do. The other half of what we do is we're a full media brand. So think like a Forbes or like a Business Insider. Our platform, we reach about 1 million people a month now. We create tons of podcast interviews, video content, articles like you would see on any other media outlets. But then we also host in-person events and virtual events. So I think we're doing anywhere from 4 to 6 events in person a month. And if you include our virtual events, maybe close to 10 a month. And then we're building a community around it too. So we want to connect not only our clients from the agency, but people that are following us so that they could, connect with one another, whether it's
Mhm.
virtually or at our events. And so a lot of the things that we tried in order to build out our own company, we always tried it on ourselves first. And there's a lot of things that we did that didn't work, which we then cut out and stopped immediately. And then there's a lot of things that we continued to do. As we were building up our brand, especially with the books, and then launched our own podcast, we realized that a lot of people wanted to launch their own podcast too. And it's one of those things where it's synchronicity. I think the timing is always important. We were doing
Mhm.
podcasts pre-COVID, and we got lucky and rode that whole podcast boom. Like when we were doing podcasts, there were only maybe 500,000 podcasts in existence in 2017.
Mhm.
In 2020, before COVID, so March 2020, there were about 1 million podcasts in existence.
Mm.
And so for 2.5 years, right, it took 2.5, 3 years for just the industry to double, but it wasn't substantial. We were wondering, is there enough of a market size and enough of demand for podcasting services for this company to even exist? We tried
Yeah.
one. We had 2, 3 clients where we were helping on the side. So we're like, okay, we're making a little bit of money and looks like we can scale this up, but we didn't know if it made sense or not.
Mm.
And actually, the way that we launched it, because I think this is important to share, is we
Yeah.
actually launched the podcast school. What was happening is the reason why we had a podcast is because I knew how to build a media brand since I'd done it once before. This was technically
Right.
my second media brand that I built up. And so for every 10 podcast interviews we conducted, we actually got one book author client out of it.
Mhm.
In marketing, been doing marketing long enough. If you get those types of conversions where you're getting 1 in 10 people signing up for anything you do, that's a great, like those numbers are amazing. You're getting a 10% conversion rate is awesome. More importantly, we're building a brand, we're building a media brand, and we're getting clients at the same time.
Yeah.
We're creating our own IP and we're building two companies that are directly complementary to one another. And there aren't that
The
many
2
things that we're
companies being the podcasting and then the book separate?
so it was our media brand, which is our podcast content
Yeah.
we were creating,
Mhm.
and then the book publishing. It was all under the one company, right? Mission Matters. So anyone that
Mhm.
went on our website, they would see that we had our own podcast and our own content we were creating, but then we were a book publishing service provider. So we were
Mm.
publishing other people's books is like our bread and butter. And so once we saw that direct correlation, my eyes lit up because I've been doing marketing 10 years at this point. I'd never seen numbers like that before.
Mm.
So we did what we knew worked, which was let's just increase output. So instead of doing one podcast interview a day, let's do 3 to 5 interviews a day. That just means
Wow.
more chances to get more clients. Then we went from 5 to 10, 10 to 20 interviews. I mean, Adam's record was 22 interviews conducted in one day. I
I can't
mean,
even imagine. Clifton and I do, like, 2 interviews a week right now, and I'm like, 22.
so granted, shorter form content, right? It's
Sure.
20-minute episodes, but still
Yeah.
8 hours of nonstop recorded content.
Yeah.
Now, what was more interesting is that we built this up incrementally, but we scaled up our backend editing team so that within 3 to 5 days, we could edit all that content and promote it through our entire platform the way that it was supposed to be done. So we could keep up with the recorded content. Now, this is where what drew our interest. We didn't decide to launch a podcast agency. What was happening is Adam was recording so much content. Every week, we were getting 1 to 2 inquiries from our
Mhm.
own guests asking us for help to launch their podcast.
Mhm.
So Adam built up a spreadsheet of, I think, close to 40, 50 people on the spreadsheet. And he let me know, he's like, hey, just so you know, on average, I'm getting 1 to 2 people a week asking us for help to launch their podcast. And I've been responding to some emails here and there, giving them some tips. But look at this spreadsheet that I have. It's about 40 people that have inquired about this. And we
Wow.
looked at it, we're like, oh, wow. I looked online and I researched it, but I don't think there's a lot of podcast schools out there that teach people how to launch their own podcast.
Mhm.
So it took 3 months and we
Blue
launched a
ocean.
podcast school. So we
Mhm.
recorded, I think, yeah, close to 85, almost 90 videos and created a whole program to teach people how to launch their own podcasts. So like the whole do it yourself.
Mhm.
Launched it. We promoted it to those 40 people. Common consensus was love the programming, have no time to do any of this. I'm a doctor, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm running my
Yeah.
business. I'm not gonna sit back here and edit video content or edit audio content. Like, I don't care to do this.
I'll
How
throw
about you?
my hand up and say I'm right with them.
So common consensus was, hey, great information, no time to do it. You guys are doing 75 to 100 episodes a week. I'm only need one a week. Can't you just fit me in and do the work for me? And so we went back and we basically realized, oh, you know what? We probably could. Took us a couple months, but we launched a podcast agency prior to COVID.
Mhm. Great
And
timing.
so that's why timing is important because
Yeah.
we rode that podcast wave. And that's how
Yeah.
we launched our podcast agency
And
as a
just
result.
being guided by the universe from feedback, listening to clients
That was
and
it.
podcast guests. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And even launching the company, Mission Matters launched by accident. It wasn't supposed to be a company. Adam published his own book, and it was a really painful process for him it took a lot more money, time, and energy, double the amount of
Mhm.
time, money, and energy than he budgeted, than he thought, because he was a financial advisor in his past life. He knew that writing a book would get him clients if he
Mhm.
used a book as a business card, which was his goal. He ended up doing that, and he actually got a paid speaking opportunity. And so this was in 2016. In 2017, he wanted to publish a second book to build off that momentum. He's like, I'm not going to go through the same painful process to publish this book. I'm going to figure out what the shortcut is. And so we looked at Chicken Soup for the Soul. That was the inspiration. And the
Mhm.
idea was let's bring together 15 authors into one book, and then each of us writes a chapter. Then the very first book we did, all we did was split the cost. We didn't make money on it. It wasn't a business. It was Adam approached me with the idea of what he had. I looked at it and I was like, I'm in the media world. I can scale this. I can do multiple books. His response was, I'm a financial advisor. I just want to do one book a year and I'm happy. So I was like, if it makes sense, let's just do one. Let's just see what it looks like. And if we can do more, great. And so it started out with us creating a solution for ourselves to make it
Mhm.
easy for us just to say we're published authors. That's how the whole company
Wow,
started.
Chirag, I really love you diving into Mission Matters, but I want to keep the spotlight on you and your journey. What propelled you to solve these problems? Has that always been, your background is like, give me a challenge and I'll step into it? Or are you seeing the macro picture and saying, hey, this is right, in your gut saying, hey, let's go in this direction as well? Talk us through what you were doing through this process.
Yeah, so similar to that past example, and I think I can build off of that actually. It's kind of how I lived my whole life, right? Is I just wanted to find a solution that was easy to solve my own problem. That was the bottom line goal. And
Mhm.
that's how I looked at all of the things that I've ever done with MoneyThink, for example, where I was fortunate and I had an amazing high school teacher that taught me about personal finances. And I saw macro level view, we're in a recession. Well, why are we in a recession? Well, part of the reason is people just aren't saving money. They're not even aware of how to save money. And I realized it's not taught in most schools, is what I learned, right? I was just lucky because I had an amazing high school teacher that taught me something. And so MoneyThink was born because it was now solving a problem that a lot of people have. Similar to launching that luxury publication, the
Mhm.
reason why I wanted to get involved in that is because I had an infatuation with social media. So I saw that businesses were being built on social media. I saw BuzzFeed they'd raised, I think, about $1 billion or whatever they were worth at one point. There was another company called Upworthy that built off of social media as
Mhm.
well. And so I was actually closely monitoring those companies and seeing how they were built. This is my own curiosity because it was just like
Mhm.
anything that told me, hey, you need to kind of understand this is what you want to do. So you need to understand the space.
Yeah, it's understanding how society ticks and, like, where trends are going
Yeah.
is a big
But
piece of
then
it.
also then understanding the longer term view, right? Which
Yeah.
is this just a trend that's momentary or is it gonna be around for a while?
How do you
So
know this? How do you know that it's gonna be around for a long time? Because there's always going to be publicists in every industry saying, "This is the next best thing." What is it within you that's like, "No, this is gonna be around for a long time?"
it was understanding the technologies behind it. Like I saw social media firsthand. The first time I used social media in business was
Mhm.
when we invested $50 into Facebook ads for that nonprofit for our Kickstarter campaign, and we got $100 back in donations. That was
Mhm.
the first time I saw that. And then it was, "Hey, this worked. Let's try this 2, 3, 4 more times," which we did. And then I was like, "Oh shit, this is gonna work. This does work. I can use Facebook, geo-target my exact audience for any product or service I want." And I realized Facebook was valued at $100 billion when they IPO'd. And I always wondered why, like, the math doesn't make sense. Like, what's the business behind this? This doesn't make sense to me because they're not really selling anything. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until that moment that I realized, oh, social media is not a fad. It's going to transform every business. And I saw it firsthand. So I think I've been fortunate because I've just been at the right place, right time. And I've been doing a lot of things that are pioneering, basically.
That's what I'm hearing is like a kinesthetic learner, like you're there, you're in the trenches experiencing it. And then you also talked about that you're just trusting your intuition to be in the right place at the right time. And so what's next? What are some of these trends that you're seeing that you just feel you're in the right place in the right time for and it's what's next?
Social media, social media influencers, blockchain, crypto, NFTs, AI, like whatever the new thing is that people are investing a lot of time, money, energy into, it hasn't survived a recession yet. All these new technologies. And what I'm really curious about is what happens after it survives a recession. Now, I think there's a lot of things that are timeless, which is no matter what, accounting is always going to be there, right? So I think being a CFO, being a lawyer, that's always part of running a business. In marketing, also, the way that I see it is building a personal brand is how you stand apart. Like, how do you know one doctor is better than another? A lot
Mhm.
of times you don't. Like, usually it's the person with a bigger brand, the personal brand is the one that people approach. And to build a bigger personal brand, it's you have to humanize yourself, is what I've seen. The more human that you can make yourself
Mhm.
on social media with, even if you're running a company account, usually the company account that's associated with the human behind it, with the
Mhm.
emotions and with the holistic approach of who is this person. And I think seeing more photos with family, with
Yeah.
not just one dimensionally, seeing the person that
Like
you as a
one
person.
category of life.
Yeah, if you can display that you're a full human and I
Mhm.
breathe the same air that you breathe, I love basketball or sports or music the same way that you do, and this is what I'm interested in. I've seen, and the data clearly shows many times over that usually that's the person who ends up getting more clients. And so at the end, I've just seen kind of what the trends are, but I
Mhm.
try to get to the most fundamental element or like atomic level of what is the core essence of what's working.
Mm.
If you remove all the fat and the fluff and you get to the core thing of what it is, that's what I really try to distill things down into. Is take a very
Mm.
macro level approach, but get down into the cellular level and figure out what are the 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 things that make
Mhm.
this work. And is it just this one anomaly or is it happening across the board and across the entire industry and other sectors too?
Mm.
So one of the interesting things that
Yeah.
I think being in media for the last 10 years that I've been able to see is I just have a purview not only on one industry, but on every industry. And it's cool having a media brand because I always say jokingly, like, I'm a jack of all trades, but I'm friends with all the masters. So any topic, any industry, if I have interest, I can just go ask the person that's been in the trenches for 30 years working on that one
Mhm.
particular problem. So I can go straight to the source. And I think that's something that having a media brand has allowed me to do over the last 10 years. So it's not just seeing the macro level view, but then having access to people that can then help, any intuitive things that I have, I can then ask the right people about it or test it out because we have a platform that we use as like our guinea pig.
Yeah, I love what you shared about showing the full human behind a brand, a personal brand, like humanizing them, giving them like a 3D image of what this person is like in their day-to-day life and their family and them in this role and that role. So I'd love for our listeners to get to know you a little better in your other categories of life where you wear other hats or roles, maybe hear about some of your passions or daily practices. I know you have an incredible stacked
Mhm.
morning routine that it took you some time and trial and error to tweak. And I'd love for you to share anything that you want to on that, Chirag.
Yeah, I think it's cool. One of my sayings or one of my things I learned early on when I was running the luxury publication and wanted to travel more is I always wanted to be global, mobile, and nimble. Like that was really important to me. Um,
Global, mobile, and nimble.
yeah. So
Okay.
small team, no politics,
Mhm.
right? And being able to just move fast and try things. And if it didn't work, being able to stop it and then try new things again. So it's a scientific method, right? Let's go back to when we were 5 years old. Like we all learned about the scientific method. You try something, if it's not working, test why it's not working, and then try something else. And I just do that
Mhm.
over and over and over again. I never stopped doing that. It's something that's always stuck with me until this very day. I approach that with everything. So not only for work and for fitness and health, but even like this morning routine. So one of the things that we were working on that I kind of mentioned to you is that I wanted to get into meditation. I wanted to get into more prayer and spirituality. I wanted to connect with family more. I wanted to spend more time with friends. I wanted to build my own communities. And we went through and figured out, okay, well, if you're not measuring it, then how do you know how much time you're spending into it? So we started doing that. And so I knew that I needed to spend some time into these categories. And so like meditation, for example, was a struggle for me for like a year, and you guys helped quite a bit, giving me new different ways for it to make sense to me. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I was at Burning Man and there was a moment where I was in the temple and then I did a meditation and something just clicked where I
Mhm.
realized that if I meditate, number one, it calms me down completely, puts me in a parasympathetic state where I can then
Mhm.
look at problems and see things come to me. And
Yeah.
so I realized that meditation was very important and it was essential for me to be in my best state. And so that led to me then realizing that I needed to meditate every day. So how do I add this in? And so I kind of just again scientific method. I tried it out at end of the day. It's really hard for me because I just get really tired. And then I figured, hey, can I do this in the morning? And I realized it worked in the morning for me. But there's some days where I couldn't do it in the morning because I just didn't have enough time because I needed to get my day going. So then I started waking up an hour earlier and I started tinkering with it. And so eventually I created this morning routine for myself. Part of it was I wake up, do minimum 20-minute meditation, which I do most days, but I don't beat myself up if I like miss a day. So minimum 20 minutes meditation. Then I usually will do some form of a workout or I'll try my best to do a workout. So in the beginning, it was a morning routine. Now it's turned into a daily routine.
Mm.
So
Spread it
now,
out throughout the day.
yeah. So as long as I could get it done, like ideally, it would be nice if I could do it in the morning, but usually my whole routine takes like 2.5, 3 hours. Sometimes I don't
Mhm.
have that luxury. So if I can spread it out, that's still a win for me. So like 20-minute minimum meditation. I try to do 30 minutes. Today I did like 35, 40 minutes. So that was awesome. And then I'll try to do a run in the sun and while I'm listening to an audiobook so I can get some form of learning in. And then I'll usually do a proper workout at the gym, usually like some form of gym training, weight training. I started getting more into yoga. Sometimes I'll substitute the yoga for the hour instead of the gym training. And then I'll do a cold shower, hot shower, and then I do a form of prayer. And then
Mhm.
that for me, that's a win.
Yeah, I hear you on that. When we're newer at doing something, you have to dedicate a specific container to it and like really focus like, okay, this is for 2 to 3 hours I'm doing this. And then when it becomes more integrated in who we are, you can kind of spread it throughout the day and it's just part of your daily flow because it's already been created as a habit. And that's something that especially with clients who are earlier in working with us, I love what you said about the parasympathetic and how it impacts your problem solving skills. And that's like the message we convey to people. And until you experience it firsthand, the benefit, sometimes you're just like, it's another to do that I check off the list, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was right. It took me like a
Yeah.
year. I need to do this because it's going to help every single part of my life out.
To
So,
flow better.
yeah.
Yeah, and something else you mentioned about doing the running while listening to audiobooks and, you're just stacking a lot of different categories of life really early on in the day and creating more joy that has a ripple throughout the day. Like the more things that you can accumulate that bring you joy early on, get you in that peak state, that peak flow, and then it sends a ripple through your day.
Oh, for sure. I think we would talk about this all the time, right? Stacking. So it's like as many of the things that I could stack. Sometimes it was even working out with friends, right?
Yeah.
And check off two, three, four boxes.
Not
Develop it.
for the task, but because you find enjoyment and you find the
Correct.
most
Yeah.
enjoyment in doing it that way.
So I have these 14 categories of life that we identified. And some of
Yeah,
them, naturally, I'm spending more time in others, right? Sleep is, of course, naturally just going to be a big part of that.
right.
Work is, of course, pretty big for me. And then some other categories, I don't need to spend as much time into it, right? Like some of it is just, I just want to spend more time with family, which for me could
Mhm,
be a couple hours, maybe an hour, 2 hours more a week talking to family members. And so it's something that I wanted to do. And it's something that I did instinctually. And the reason why I bring this up is because those categories of life evolved too. Where I think there were
mhm.
moments where I removed categories and I was like, actually, this is no longer relevant to me or it no longer serves me. Or
Yeah,
this is something newer that I want to add to it that I'm realizing is part of this intuitive growth. So I want to make it
mhm.
intentional where I'm going to spend more time in it. But I want to do it because I want to do it, right? I want to do it because it's making me happier. It's putting me in a state of joy. It's enlightening me somehow, some way,
Mm.
not because it's a forced something, a to-do list, right? We all as humans adapt and evolve. And, there's things that are just that I thought were relevant. And sometimes it served its time, but I've gotten new interests too. And I want to move on from those.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is shifting your identity. At some point, like you said, a certain chapter comes to a completion and then a new one opens. And then you're a new person in that identity with the upgrades. And now there's space for something new to come in place of what has just left.
And that opens
Exactly.
up our final question here for today's episode. And what does human potential mean to you, Shirag?
That's a great question. So for me, I think the human potential is whatever limitations you put on it. So if you don't
Mm,
believe there are any limitations you could put on it, then I think the human potential is limitless. Probably
Beautiful.
the simplest way for me to answer that.
yeah. Very short, sweet, and profound at the same time.
And where can our listeners find you? Where can they get in contact and understand all the incredible things that you're rolling out in this world?
Absolutely. So very active on LinkedIn and on Instagram. My email, chirag@missionmatters.com. I try my best, and so far I can still do it. It's just response to every email that comes in.
Yeah.
So happy to stay connected with anyone that wants to. And in terms of anyone that would love to attend our events or anything else, feel free to contact me via email and happy to add people to
Mhm.
the newsletter or also to join our community too. Meet some folks in person as well.
And the email is Chirag@missionmatters.com. His LinkedIn is Chirag Sagar, and Instagram is Chirag D. Sagar.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in today's episode, Chirag. It was a pleasure dropping in with you, hearing about what's on the horizon for you and Mission Matters, hearing your backstory. I know we know a lot of it, but hearing a different lens of how you were looking at the markets as you were creating all the different businesses and just hearing like how you operate, how your brain ticks, and how you analyze and strategize is always really fascinating for me. Like, talking with other entrepreneurs and just seeing what fuels them, what drives them, and what they're super passionate about. So, thank you so much for bringing your perspective in for our listeners to get to know you a little better. And thank you, Clifton, for co hosting this incredible episode with me.
Thank you. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for having me and appreciate it.